We want to create our digital infrastructure, and we want to plug in all these amazing tools into it, right? That's what we're seeing here, right? So it's actually great that people are asking us questions because they're trying to figure out how they're going to use all these solutions.
Well, and this show's been great in bringing all this up to the top.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm here at the ProveIt conference. We're doing a ProveIt podcast session. I'm here with Travis Cox and Arlen Nipper. They just got off the main stage with their ProveIt session. So Travis, Arlen, welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having us.
So why don't we just dive right into it and kind of give us, how do you think your session went?
I think it went really well.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Arlen?
It was awesome. Travis did an awesome job.
I try to pack as much as I can in 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
To really kind of show the whole journey and really just what it would be like if they were to do it.
Okay, so walk us through what you did. Just so if someone hasn't seen it yet, like give us an idea of what it is you walk through from like edge to cloud.
Yeah, so we know a lot of these systems are largely on-premise, right? To be able to solve the challenges that are there. So we started out at the edge because if Ignition historically has been unlimited, and you typically put one server at a plant, and that can connect to all the controllers out there. It can bring data, it can build applications, but if that server is in the IT room and you lose connectivity, to a particular PLC in a building or whatever, you would lose data, lose visibility, right? And that's what HMIs are important for on the plant floor. And so we started with Ignition Edge, where we can connect to the actual PLCs, the controllers, OPC servers, whatever it is there. So we can bring the data in, we can build data models off of that, and that we can store and forward that data into the UNS, using MQTT Spark Plug. At the same time, of course, we can have a local HMI, where we can, if they ever lose visibility, they can go to that machine, they can still control it. So we started at the edge, and we're able to get the data from there, publish it into the MQTT server, where then we can have our central plant solution. And that would be where we would aggregate all the data from all the different devices into one place and build out an application and be able to deliver that application to anybody on their phones, tablets, panel PCs, smart TVs, what you name it, right? Wherever they want to see that data. And then ultimately from there, a lot of customers are going to store data historically on premise, and it might be for a couple of years, right? It's not going to be your long-term approach. So leveraging the cloud, leveraging databases like Snowflake and others can be really important. So we wanted to show a hybrid solution going from the plant to the cloud, where we can leverage Snowflake. We showed the IoT bridge.
Yeah, so walk us through, once you're getting that into the cloud, I know you're using Ignition Cloud, and the Cirrus Link IoT bridge module to get it into Snowflake. So walk us through how that data moves from, and also like how the edge, I want to really focus on how the UDT, defined at the edge goes all the way up the stack where it's defined in one place.
Well, so the really cool thing is within Ignition, you define your UDT. You give it all the contextual data, engineering high, engineering low, engineering units, dead bands, scaling factors, at linear, is it square root, all of that contextual information right there at the equipment. So, subject matter expert, you put that right there. Now, from then on, that basically is a single source of truth. So the UDT and the instances of the UDT are all published to the Ignition Gateway. So now I've got those at the plant level. I could have multiple ones of those. And now if I go to the cloud, immediately I've got all my UDTs over Spark Plug B instantiated, but those were defined all the way at the edge.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So specifically, we're using MQTT Spark Plug, and Spark Plug
to publish payload and structure.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Spark Plug has in it the ability to define on the birth message all the data models that we have, all the UDT definitions that are there. And on the burst, it also publishes all the instances of those definitions. And that's gonna let, that's gonna go into the broker and let any application understand what that edge node is going to publish, right? And so that allows us to define it one place. On the central plant solution with MQTT Engine, it automatically discovers those, and it has the UDTs are just built for you. Right?
And then if you change it at the edge, it will rebuild it?
So by default, the way we have it with Transmission Engine right now is that if you were to go and change the definition of the UDT at the edge, we don't replace it on.
It'll create
ignition.
a new definition of
It
it.
doesn't. No, it doesn't do anything by default. Right?
Okay.
Because you got to be a little bit careful about, because if you change the definition for one machine, what about if there's other machines that
Publishing
still
using the
haven't
old-
changed?
Okay.
Right.
So what we like people to do,
Yeah. What is the ideal architecture there? What's the
is
recommendation?
to version them. Is
Okay.
to have so if I have a motor, let's say, and I have a motor UDT, go motor V1, right? That's what we're using. Then if we need to do a difference, we can inherit from that and make some changes and have that be motor V2. And ultimately, we'd see both of those would come in, to Ignition or to any other third party.
Would the EAM module be able to help you with that versioning, or how are you going to be? How do you manage it? Like, could you do it with Git? Like, how would you manage your UDT definitions
Well,
in an enterprise?
A lot of our customers, from a corporate standpoint, they will come out with a set of UDTs and then put those in a repository.
Like a definition or
Yeah.
an information model.
Now, if you're any facility, if they want to use a pump UDT, they pull that UDT down.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
okay.
if they're going to modify it or change it in some way, then it would be pump V2.
Okay.
Right. So you've got that. But you ask about all the way into Snowflake.
Okay.
So from there, we're publishing Spark Plug to the IoT bridge. And what the IoT bridge does on the left side, it knows all about Spark Plug. But on the right side, it connects to the Snowpipe streaming API for Snowflake, which basically is free ingest into an SQL table in Snowflake. Now, that's raw. Every Spark Plug message is in the Spark Plug raw. The cool thing is that there was no digital twin service. We literally used, that's an SQL database. So we used a schema. We used the schema off of Spark Plug. So if I've got a UDT and I know a schema, I can go find that UDT, put it up into a table. Now from there, I can create all my tables from all of my machines from those definitions.
Yeah, and I think if you guys haven't seen their demo, you got to check it out or reach out to them, ask them to show it to you, because without seeing how those information models are available in Snowflake for doing, machine learning or analysis, it's kind of hard to understand how valuable that is unless you've tried to do it before, where then you don't want to manage another information model in another platform. You just want to define it in one place with a single source of truth and make that available. Frankly, in any cloud, but in this use case, you demonstrated Snowflake. How much work did it take on the Snowflake side to get that to happen?
Yeah, all that's happening in Snowflake, it's actually really, really beautiful in that all the Spark Plug messages are going into a raw table. So every value that comes in, whether it's part of UDT or not, right? Any publish is going to go in there. And there's just some stored procedures that are syncing the data, from the raw into another device message table where we're breaking out the whole metric, right? And of course knowing about those UDTs. And so part of that is it'll create the view. So all the individual values are going to another table, and that's all the history, right? Because if you know Spark Plug, if you look at the actual message, it's JSON.
Right.
If I store the JSON on a table, I don't want to do compute to have to break it apart. So the syncing is to break it apart, make a nice wide table that is for every single metric's value, right? Or tall table, but broken out all the columns in terms of all the metric values. And then all the UDT definition is we look at that structure and we build a view that normalizes data and as a wide table.
And so you're defining that view through the Snowflake API.
It's just a stored procedure that runs.
And Snowflake does that automatically, or do I have to just install that?
When you install the IoT bridge, it installs all the stored procedures for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It creates that structure, tables, and stored procedures and the functions, and then it's just called automatically as data comes in. And what's cool about Snowflake is it has streams that you could define where all that table data coming into Spark Plug raw, the streams are keeping track of what's new. So we're only ever processing what's new and being able to see, if there's new definitions being created or, when the new data that's in there. And it's really simple. And But what's powerful about the view for every UDT is that I get just one simple thing to query, a select star from my compressor UDT view.
And that gives you one row per timestamp and then one column per value per UDT attribute.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes it actually usable versus like just having value timestamp, and then having to query all of those objects yourself.
That turns into a data swamp.
That's the data swamp.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is really key. And so what was the feedback?
I think we got a lot of wows on
we got
that.
a lot.
Anytime we've done this demo with customers, they're just like, holy moly, because we specifically, Arlen, this was, you wanted this in the beginning. Everybody asked us, we could connect Ignition directly to Snowflake as a historian and log data to a table, right? But you specifically chose MQTT Spark Plug, for a reason. So why don't you give some of that background?
Well, again, if you did coming off the back end of the SQL database, all you get is a timestamp and a value. We wanted all the contextual data that goes with that as well. And to get that out easily and open, we don't want to be sending data around with a proprietary application.
And that's it, right? Using an open standard. If I had a sensor, if it was Opta22's Epic device, if it was another sensor that had either data or a data model, and it publishes to the broker, it would automatically be ingested in Snowflake, right? And then we would be able to query it. So it's not just an Ignition solution, right? It's the idea of being able to take any kind of data out there.
Right. As long as it's Spark Plug, boom, it'll go into Snowflake.
Yeah.
And again,
I wish you guys had more time to show, because I feel like you could have shown a lot more, like with the Snowflake side. It was good to see it go from edge to cloud and then into Snowflake. But then, once, because a lot of people probably aren't even using Snowflake yet, but they could imagine, you could imagine how you could use it and how the bridge module in combination with Snowflake and the IoT platform of Ignition, how it could be super valuable to managing your data.
Yeah.
And
I would have loved to go a little bit further. In a demo that I've done previously, we did anomaly detection at a different event. We did anomaly detection. Snowflake has a native in their service. And in fact, you could actually build an anomaly detection model just using a query. So we actually built a screen in Ignition where they could train a model on data. It'd select the data, select what they're looking for, train the model, it would create the model, and then it would have it run automatically and alarm if there was an anomaly that was happening. We did it off of Opta22. They had a car wash that we did anomaly detection on the freezer. So it was really cool. But I mean, there's so much more ML. There's generative AI that's in Snowflake. There's so much more you could take advantage of.
But remember what I pointed out in the demo is, Walker always says you have to have a UNS database. So we had all this infrastructure in here, and I didn't want people to get confused that the broker is the UNS database, because it's not.
You're right. You need to have that hierarchy that in this case is ISA 95 in a database to be able to make it accessible to other consumers.
Exactly.
And also, really, this is one of the things that allowed us to be successful on that Firebrand award-winning project over a decade ago, was having an external database that drove our namespace and our tag development. Back then it was the Gateway Area Network. Yeah. But, we didn't manually create a single tag. We just used the tag creation engine and a database that drove those creation of those tags. Let me ask you this, guys. So Travis, what's the most common question you've gotten here at the show?
Honestly, it's been how do you compare against other vendors? Right?
Okay. How does that make you feel? And how did you? I think you handled it well, but how is it from your perspective?
Honestly, I think those are great questions, because this is the first time where we are challenging status quo. We're saying, look, as a customer, it's their data, it's their digital infrastructure.
You guys pioneered that approach.
I understand, but it's really important that a mindset is that the organization is we want to create our digital infrastructure, and we want to plug in all these amazing tools into it, right? And we want it based on open,
best in class, and open,
and that's what we're seeing.
And that makes it actually usable versus just having value timestamp, and then having to query all of.
Bring all this up to the top. And here we are Thursday afternoon. everybody's still at the show.
Yeah, no, yeah. What was the most common question you've been getting, Arlen?
MQTT. How did you invent it? How do you use it? What can we do with it next? Things like that.
The other big question that I got is, of course, because we have a new release pending.
Yeah,
coming,
8.3.
Right? So 8.3.
Yeah,
everybody was asking.
What do you want to
when's it
share about
coming
that?
out,
Yeah.
Right? And so we're going to be releasing it here at the end of the quarter, the beta.
Okay. What are the main the headliner features of 8.3?
Okay, you got 20 seconds.
Yeah, I know. In the session, I went really quickly on 30 seconds to say what the big ones were. But there's kind of two big categories, right? There's a lot of people that have been using Ignition for a long time. And in terms of how they deploy it, how they manage it, they want better tools, especially kind of more developer-focused tools.
Okay.
And so we're doing version control. So we're putting all the configuration in the file system. So you can use any kind of version control system. If you want to put it into a Git repo, go for it. And you could use Git flows, right, to pull into production for your DevOps, all that. So having that config there.
So I could manage my UDT definitions.
100%.
I could manage my whole project.
100%.
Okay.
And not only with that, we're going to add onto it a REST API at Ignition so that we can access all the status and configuration.
Oh.
So that you could use third-party tools like Ansible or other automation tools to be able to do fleet management or to get information into the IT tools so they can manage Ignition better, right? Be more a first-class citizen to what they're used to. So those are kind of really big from a version control. And then like DevOps, having a development, testing, a staging and production environment. We know there's differences, right? And Ignition config, there's going to be differences across those environments. So we're also building a new mode where you can actually in Ignition define what those differences are.
Oh, and you can swap the gateways from hey, I'm in development mode to I'm in
every gateway will have, I'm going to be in production mode, I'm going to be in testing mode, or I'm going to be in development mode. It will choose that config and run it.
That's awesome.
And so that way, here's what's important is if I'm going to move from dev to production, right now, people have to be careful about what they move over, right? They have to kind of know.
Yeah.
With this, I can push it to a repo. They can pull it after they've, ready for testing. They pull it. It uses the testing environment. We're good to go, right? So that's a really big piece for the people that have been managing it for a while. The other headliner features are event streams, which is a new module for very performant, low code, no code way of moving data between different sources and handlers. In particular, customers want us to support Kafka.
Okay.
And we didn't want to just support Kafka in an island, right? You want to have a framework you could build that into so that if data comes in from Kafka, we can move it to a tag or to a database or wherever, or MQTT, and vice versa, right? We want to be able to get that data around. So yeah, those are kind of the big hitting ones. We're continuously improving perspective with offline forms and drawing tools.
Nice.
We've got a new historian based on QuestDB that will be local to Ignition. So for people that are new, they're not used to SQL databases, they could just get up and running.
Okay.
And it's not proprietary. It's based on open source technology. They can externalize if they want to. So there's a lot of great stuff for everybody in this release.
Awesome. Arlen, anything you want to share?
No, we're just trying to get everything updated.
How was the fireside chat?
It was good. I liked it.
You thought it was valuable? Yeah. I thought it was valuable.
Yeah, everybody complimented me on everything. Matthew, Jonathan.
I really hope that conversations like this and conferences like this help move the industry forward. And like I said at the beginning, we wouldn't, if you and Inductive hadn't partnered up to make this technology available in the industrial consumers, then I don't know if we would be here today. We wouldn't, right? And so we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Inductive Automation and Cirrus Link and Arlen Nipper, being the co-inventor of MQTT. It's an honor to have you guys here. Any calls to action?
I think the biggest call to action is get involved in these different open standards. Make sure that there's wide adoption and use and benefit of them. So MQTT Spark Plug is a good example, right? We're part of the working group.
Yep.
We want more people to get involved, right? And we want more vendors to support these technologies because if we all have it, then the customer's going to win, and that's what we're here for.
Okay, I'll give you guys a plug. I'm going to put a call to action. You got to check out the ICC this year. I heard you guys are going big. I was at the very first ICC, and I mean, it shared some of the same magic. It was the first time I had ever been to a community conference where I felt like I was home. I was part of other people who were like me.
Yep.
And so definitely check out the ICC this year.
First time in Sacramento.
That's huge.
It's a new location. I think I'm hoping we get 2,000 people there.
Yeah, that'll be epic. So. Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you again for being at the show, being Inductive Automation and Cirrus Link as co-sponsors of the conference, and great job on your session. that's it basically. We'll
Thanks.
wrap it up here.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much for having
Thanks,
us.
Zach.
We
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Cool.